Hello, this is Clinton and Hillary, and welcome to BlackLantic. We're a podcast and media channel bringing East Coast voices to the world.
This week, we will be speaking to Karen and Al Ferron of Ferron Family Farms.
Our podcast is weekly with guest or topics, and you can find us anywhere online by searching BlackLantic. If you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure to subscribe to us and hit that like button.
How are you both doing today?
Good.
I will say, I'll start introing briefly by saying that this, as we mentioned when we before we clicked record in our little preamble, that for anyone listening, this has been a long time coming and in the making. I think fueled by my resident brown farm boy beside me, Clinton, and his love of farming. Because one day I signed into our shared Instagram and saw what you guys were doing, and as I believe I mentioned to Karen on the phone, I've never known of any Black farmers in the entire province, and I think we were just so interested in hearing your story. And I'm excited that I selfishly get to share the story on other platforms as well, which is soon to come, because I'm just enthralled by why and how you guys are doing what you're doing, and so I'm really excited to have the conversation today. Clinton, do you want to share any thoughts about this, since I threw you under the bus before we start?
How'd you throw me under the bus?
Well, I don't know if it's throwing you under the bus, but just like outing you for your love of farming, I guess.
I'm offended. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say that as we talk, I think it'll quickly be obvious to viewers that you folks are much more of farmers than I am. I live on farmland. We have numerous birds and animals in a small garden, but nothing like what I've seen on your reels and stories at Ferron Family Farms. But yeah.
I'd love to start because I was fortunate enough to speak to Karen on the phone, but I'd love to hear from the two of you, whoever wants to start, basically the story leading up to the moment that you, I think, meet, which from my understanding, I think is it's not New Brunswick, and is it Scarborough, but I know there was some Alberta time at some point, so I'd love to hear sort of the origin story of the two of you.
Well, I was born in Jamaica, but migrated to Edmonton, Alberta when I was younger, and grew up there, did my education there. And 2001, I decided to move to Toronto with my daughter. My parents had decided to move back to Jamaica, and it was just a right fit for me. Change of life, was just wanted something new and to be closer to family, which was Jamaica and New York City, where my family are residing. So I moved to Toronto, and Al was there. We were living in the same building, not knowing each other, and a fire alarm went off about 1 a.m. one morning.
Hey.
And we all met up in the lobby. And now over 20 years later.
Wow.
And my daughter from previous relationship, 4 children. We're here now on a farm in New Brunswick.
What a way to meet.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to meet. I want to ask you what it was like living in Edmonton, but first, Al, how about you? What's your origin story a little bit?
Yeah, how do you get to be in that same lobby? I need to know. I've got a Nicholas Sparks movie going on in my head. I'm like, there was no real fire, they're the flame. Like, I'm romanticizing this whole story over here.
Yeah. Well, I am from Jamaica. I came here when I was younger. I came to Toronto, and yes, we actually, me and my brother was living together in that apartment, and coming home one night from work, the fire alarm went off, and I saw her there in the corner, and as a guy looking for a nice young lady, she was really catching my eyes.
Really something to look at, eh?
I made a move anyways and got a number, and yes, 3 kids later, we're here. But we made a few moves. I was working in the city for a while. Worked with Toronto Transit Commission for a bit, and it's just that the city, for us, we wanted a change, didn't know what kind of farming we were going to be ending up doing in New Brunswick here, but made this change here. And my kids got, my son got into university, and my daughter's going again September. So both will be in university now. And yeah, we're here doing this farming.
Yeah.
You know,
But I have to say, it was his idea. It was his dream at first. And he'd always told me he wanted a farm. Because he did, grow up with his grandparents who had a farm in Jamaica. And anyone knows this guy, knows his love for natural food and produce and cooking.
yeah.
And so that was even one of the things I loved about him. But he, when we lived in Ontario, that was our thing, to drive to the markets, and which he introduced me to, to get the fresh fish. And we would go to the Amish farmers to get our goat meat. Because he trusted getting the goat meat himself that he saw was raising on the farms.
Well, what a lot of people don't know, and I'll put this out there, maybe it's gonna be where I don't know if I'm intervening with the marketing of what's going on, but for goat meat in the stores, you actually don't get that real goat meat. You get mutton, and it's considered they sell it as goat meat, but it's mutton that's there, unless
It's sheep.
it's sheep, and it's not grass fed. So what I used to do was go by the Amish and get the real meat, which was totally different
And grass
from
fed.
that. I could, anybody could vouch for it. They could tell you, I used to go do it. Well, the reason for this is that I growing up in Jamaica as a kid with my grandmother, didn't know that it was gonna drive me to go on a farm. Was that before high school or before school in the morning, we had animals, and I was that guy who was in charge of the animals, which cows and goats and pigs and
which put him through
chickens.
school. That's what put him through school.
Those were like, for pigs was like, that in Jamaica you pay school fee, unlike here we're going to high school. It's you don't pay a fee, but in Jamaica it's paid a school fee. So those pigs used to be my school fee money, and uniform and books or whatever was coming from that. So my grandmother, from an early age, she was giving me this, and I didn't really know what she was curving me for, anyways.
And instilling you.
Yes, and so for that, I like getting that natural meat, and I used to just go get my eggs and natural meat from the Amish. And, which when I cook, even for friends, they were like, where did you get this? I could tell them that's natural goat. It's just total different.
Yeah, because once you taste the natural goat meat, you realize what you're getting in the stores, is not 100% goat meat. Some meat sellers will even mix it up with the goat meat. And if you cook our goat meat compared to what you get in the store, as most Jamaicans know, you have to use a pressure cooker sometimes because the meat is tough. Well, that's because it's not real goat meat, or it wasn't grass fed or natural grain.
Yes. So
what do you mean?
In the West Indian stores, right? Because I did a little bit of this there. In the West Indian stores, like for Danforth or those, if you go to say the last place I saw that was in one of those food stores, it was it Price Chop or not Price Chop?
One of the
No
grocery
frills.
stores. Don't call names.
Oh, sorry. But yeah,
Okay.
well, not for
You can call names on this show. We don't care.
And for that grocery store, I noticed they had goat leg and shoulder. Now that was sold for a different price than if you go to the Chinese stores or the local West Indian stores where they are selling goat meat. The goat would be a bit cheaper, and the reason being that's not goat. You know what I mean? It's mutton.
They will label it as mutton because most Caribbeans will call goat meat mutton anyhow. So when they see the mutton package, they will just assume
It's goat
that
meat.
it's 100% goat meat. And with my research, when we were starting this farm for a business plan, most of the goat meat that you see that does sell in the major chain market is coming from like Australia,
Yeah.
and they're coming frozen. So you don't know what those goat was fed, if they were given any kind of hormones, right? Or anything, which most mass producer meat producers will do to fatten up their animals quicker.
Yeah, for a
Which
better growth
goats,
rate.
they do take a long time to put weight on. Like sheep
Which
put
is,
on weight a
yes.
lot quicker than a goat does. It takes like a year for a goat to become
For you to get a full mature buck,
yeah.
it will take you close to a year for him, unless you're trying to add something to their feed to actually put that weight on. You know, for the sheep, a sheep, say 6 months old sheep would be, you could get up to
80 pounds to
100
100
pounds
pounds, yeah.
from a 6 months old sheep. When comparing to a goat, you'll maybe end up with 50 pounds, you know, or 60 pounds, which is a bit less.
Wow.
So it takes a while for that goat to reach that full mature, or that buck, because for me, I use the bucks for meat. Caribbeans, like our West Indians, they do like the bucks for that strong smell. So which is the females we keep for breeding, and males we sell for meat. So for that period of time, it takes a longer while. It takes a little bit longer. So your meat is going to be a bit more expensive, or your product will be a little bit more expensive. Grass fed, it's for you to get your grass or your hay, or the type of hay for them. You know, they are picky eaters too. So it for you to be providing for them, you definitely have to be charging. Your price will be a little bit higher than what you compare to see a mutton selling for in the regular stores.
Yeah. So that is one of our with us selling our goat meat, and that's why we pride ourselves in making sure everyone knows that they're 100% grass fed and pasture raised, because it really does affect the meat, the taste, and how tender the meat is. So anyway, so with all of that story, that was one of the reasons too that we've decided, let's do something we know about and that we love, which is, goat. We do other animals, like we do produce other livestock. We do beef, we do pork, also, but we specialize in the goat market because we know there's not many goat farmers out there.
Well, I'll give you a funny story. Or maybe it's not even funny for you guys, but I think it's funny for me. It's well, when we got here, I didn't really know exactly what we are going to be raising. So the barns I have is actually set up for pigs, and everything was there set up, and I was saying, well, we could get to do these pigs, and I was
just
going to
utilize
Karen,
what
and
was
I was
already
saying,
set
Karen,
up.
Let's utilize what's here and do the pigs. And we found out that the federal abattoirs that was here in the county we're at, it's not here anymore. We would have to go to Prince Edward Island or Quebec. And furthermore, for doing the pork, you have to get a contract in order to do it. And so our friend, well, the persons we bought the place from, they were doing that, and the neighbor was doing pigs. He didn't mention it that he was doing the pigs under that contract. So I had offered for some hay for him to cut my hay at the front, and he would get 50% of that. Half of it would be his, half would be mine. But then I realized that I don't know what my animals that I was gonna get, how much they're gonna use. So I couldn't do it that way unless I find out how much I'm gonna be needing myself. So I decided to fertilize it and do it get it done, and I'll pay for it. So in the time that I did that, I found he came up and he mentioned to me that he started telling me about the contract. And now it's when he's trying to tell me that he knows the guy and wanted to give me the number. But before we even get to there, Karen looked at me and she said, since we can't get this contract and we're not getting much information about it, and it seems like such a process, why don't you do what you know? And I said, what is that? She's like, do some goats. I was like, you know, you're right. So right away, I went about it and started getting goats. She's like, are you going to get them now? I'm like, yeah, you put something in my head. So I started getting the goats. And to be frank with you, now is where nobody around here knew nothing about goats.
They laughed at us, actually.
It's like, why goats? You know? And so we started off, and I started introducing it to a few people. Well, there's a group here with a lot of Caribbean, and I introduced it there. I introduced a bit to Fredericton and in the African community, and I find that
and the East Indians.
Yeah, and the East Indians. And because, you know, this is part of their culture. It's a niche product that we all enjoy. And that's how we've been going about and trying to promote it. And, you know, which is, I mean, it's where now the province itself, well, the MLA that's here, we spoke to, she had mentioned now that she people are trying to find out about getting into goats.
Vets
want to go back to
learn more about how to treat goats, because more farmers are getting goats now.
Trendsetters, eh?
Yeah.
People what?
Yeah. And even people who looked at us and said, why goats? Yeah. Well, now we find out they're getting goats too.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a process. We're still learning a lot of stuff. I mean, I've never done it on a big scale as what I'm trying to get done here now. As I said, I did this at a younger age, and you know,
and farming is different in Jamaica than it is in Canada, obviously,
because of the rules, and you know, I mean, a lot more stuff,
and the weather,
and yes. So you know, getting adjusted, and you know, one of the things is we're actually we're first generations. It's not as if we are fifth generation that comes in,
which we've been told,
and have all the equipments that you need, and the setup in place. You know, everything we have to be doing from scratch, and the help is not there in the community as it is if I was of a different I put it straight, if I was considered one of them, yes,
yeah,
yeah,
then it would have been totally different. But I find that most you do find one and two good people. You know, as Muhammad Ali said in one of his statements, is that he knows there's like 1,000 good brother snakes that in a pack of 10,000. But what should he do? Should he give the 1,000 the chance to protect him against the other 9,000? Or should I just close that door? You know what I mean? So this is kind of how the feeling is with certain things. So we've been burnt, you know, since we're starting here, not knowing certain things about the farming. So there's people that's here that, you know, of that different color that's supposed to be helping that burn us. And I think there should be some more resources set up for first-time farmers in the Atlantic region here. You know, at least give people who are thinking about it the opportunity to get started. You know, there's no much help for you. So if you don't have
that drive, it's very difficult, because I mean, on that note, I've met an Asian couple recently, and they've been here 3 years, and he has the property, but he no longer has the farm, because he said when he came here, the pushback he received, he couldn't sustain. Because one of the things with this industry that I've realized, it's basically the same as any other industry. When you're new coming in, if there's not a network, a supportive network to help kind of steer you, it's really easy to fall off and lose what you started. And even though, you know, that other 10,000, as I would say, is there, I still many times rely on that thousand to for advice, because there's just so much research you can go to the internet and find, you know, and if you don't know which direction to go, you can get lost in this world where we've never been, and on top of it, we're in an area where we don't know anyone, you know, initially. So we could really get overwhelmed with the whole being new and first generation. Thank goodness that we're very resilient. And we both have the attitude when we get the knockdowns, well, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
And that's really how I've always been. Now, even where we are, I mean, because in truth, we moved here 2021, January 27th, right?
Wow.
And we didn't start farming until coming close to the summer, where we say, okay, this is a business. We get the business plan done.
No,
we start introducing ourselves.
I started getting things.
Well, you started getting animals, which I didn't even agree with. I'm like, this barn isn't even set up yet. What are we doing? Like, my business plan isn't done. What are you doing? Yeah. He didn't care. He was off buying animals and bringing them in, which I'm actually glad he did, because then we were put into that situation where, well, we got to learn how to take care of animals.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. And exactly. You know, and we have, and I'm still so proud of where we are. And those people that were laughing at us for two reasons. One, we're from Ontario and we're from the city. What are they doing? One farmer looked at us and said, why are you doing this? To get rich? Because if you think you're going to get rich, you choose the wrong field. And we're like, no. You know, we've had all these little comments been, you know, thrown our way about why we would want to do this. And then the other one is too, we're immigrants and we're in a community that, I mean, one, you're not the first one, Hillary, to tell us that, because even when we've spoke to people in the New Brunswick agriculture, you know, you're the first Black farmers we've ever
Absolutely. Yeah. So, of course you are. Yeah.
We met a lady that, and she's from Newfoundland, and she says she's only lived in the Atlantic all her life. And she says, I've lived in Newfoundland. Where else did she live? Was it PI? But now she lives here. And she says, I've never seen a Black farmer before. So
I have friends who think that I am a crazy person. Like, you know, why would you in this gambit?
Well,
you know?
Y'all sound like the most rational, logical people. Go ahead, Hillary. I've ever met. I'm so happy listening to this story. Go ahead.
There was so much to unpack that I don't want to skirt by Clinton's emotional fragility around learning about goat and mutton. Are you learning this news? That a lot of, I think, your Toronto dishes were maybe something else.
Well, you kind of answered my question. Yeah. So just quickly on that. So you're saying like a lot of West Indies restaurants, these Caribbean restaurants, when we're ordering goat, we're actually getting mutton. Probably the places that never have goat are the places that serve real goat. The places that are always sold out of goat, probably.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't know. That's the thing. They don't know that it's not real goat meat, that it is.
And they'd rather buy the cheaper meat by the mass, right?
Yes, because that's how you're going to make a profit in the restaurant business.
Right.
So that's what it is.
I'm good emotionally, Hillary, but my mouth is watering. I just need to come have some grass-fed goat.
Well,
like we got to make a road trip out there.
I tell you, when we've had like people buy our meat, because we've even had people that come here to vacation or visit and come and buy our goat meat, and they're like, one of his friends, the gentleman you know, called him.
Yes, I am a friend of mine. He wanted some goat, so he bought some goat, and after cooking that meat, he called me. He's like, it's like I'm missing something. It's been
he goes,
this isn't goat I was cooking all these years.
What have I been cooking all these years?
He's like, man, it's like I'm in Jamaica. All the house smells of this meat. This is the real thing. He's like, listen, Next time I'm ordering, I need 10 pounds. I said, okay, cool, man, no
That's
worries.
amazing.
But it's just
Beautiful.
total different meat. You know, it's the smell, the
That's-
taste, and the time of cooking is so. You got to watch this meat that you don't overcook. Let it cook out.
because
You
it's
know,
so
because
tender.
it's tender. You know, that's how good this meat is. Not to be bragging and what or things, but it's just
No,
it's
brag
just the truth.
away.
It's yeah.
Yeah, I know, like Hillary. Yeah, there's so much to to unpack here. This has actually been one of
Yeah.
the best like episodes in a way, because this has been so easy for us. We've just been sitting here listening for
Yeah.
25 minutes. But Karen, the first thing I'll say is that, you know, you were definitely right to tell Al to do what he knows, because he sure knows goat.
Yes.
Like that is so apparently clear to me. Um, Thank you for sharing all that. That was enthralling. Hillary, what do you want to ask first? I've got questions too.
Well, I
Go
definitely
for
want
it.
to like backtrack, because you touched on so many things that like I was fortunate enough to hear about in my conversation with Karen that I know I wanted to get into. But I guess first and foremost, I understand the like the love of farming and where that came from and exploring the markets here. And I'm proud to say that I try to like only shop local here. And so very happy that we're all on the same page. But why New Brunswick? Like I know that has to be the question that most people ask, is that like if you want to get into farming and you're looking for land and you choose outside of Woodstock, why?
I'll give you this.
You
I'll
tell
give you
someone,
this.
let them
Again.
excuse after.
Okay.
Can I excuse for a minute?
Of course.
Thanks.
So I came home and we're living in Newcastle there, and I came home one day. I've always been looking at farmland, and we had well we had seen a place in Peterborough in Ontario, and it, it was within the Amish community. At that time, it was 100 acres, and it wasn't that bad price at that time, you know. So I said to Karen, you know, let's get this farmland. And she's like, who's gonna live there? I said, where? She's like, no. So I said, okay. So I kind of leave it alone for a while. And
Yeah.
then one of these days I came home, which is years later, because I was in Whitby living at that time. No, we were in Newcastle. I came home one day and I was in the garage, and just some mindset to me, just look for farmland. And I keep on looking. But every time I'm looking in Ontario, I see the prices, and you know, I said, okay, a mindset of me look outside of Ontario. So that's what I did, and actually saw a place in Nova Scotia. And a friend of mine was living in Nova Scotia, and I asked her to go look at this place. It was in Truro, and she went and she looked at it, and I was gung ho on getting it. But Karen was like, no. I'd sent her this place that we are before. She didn't even pay any attention. But then I think she picked it up and looked at it again. She's like, oh, if we are going to go, I like this place more. So we started looking at it. And the more and more we were looking at it, the more and more we are saying, okay, it looks as if we're going to be going to New Brunswick. So decided to put a bid on, and you know, we did that. You know, we were disappointed in a few things anyways, with the house and stuff, because of at the time we got it, we couldn't come and see it.
Yeah, because it was in the midst of COVID.
Yeah, sight unseen. A lot of people
Yeah.
bought homes from Ontario like that. Yeah.
So and you know, a lot of us we got inspection done and stuff like that, but I think they didn't do a good job. Anyways, that's beside, you know, what it is. So we choose this place, and we put our place up for sale, and we packed it up and head out, you know, with the kids.
And the kids, at first, when we told them what we were going to do, my older son, he was just, and at that time, if you remember, we were on lockdown. So I think kind of COVID, being in that situation really was kind of like the catalyst that, you know, helped us to decide to do this when we did it. Because we've talked about it over the years, because he's always wanted a farm.
Yes. And we've talked about, as a matter of fact, we have never been to the East Coast. So 2 years prior to the pandemic, we're supposed to be coming here for vacation, going as far as Newfoundland. And the first trip we planned with a friend,
We end up
it ended up getting
canceling.
canceled.
And
And
the
then the
second
second
one,
time, his friend something happened,
so we
and we
canceled
canceled.
again. So we've never even been here before.
Yeah.
So
So
when on lockdown in Ontario, he saw the place and we decided we're going to do this. When I went to the children, my son was in his final year, he was in grade 12. He was like, you know what? I welcome this because I've always grown up in Ontario. I've never been anywhere else in Canada. And he goes, I'm not like you, mom. You at least lived in Alberta and and then you lived in Ontario, but I've never lived anywhere else but Ontario. So he said he would want to give it a try. My young second daughter, my second daughter, Makeda, she was in grade 11 at the time. No, yeah, grade 11. She said, well, she'll do this if we get horses. And our younger daughter at the time was 10 at the time, Angelica. She said, well, I'll go as long as you have Wi-Fi. So we decided to. Now my older daughter, who is married, she's a nurse and has a 4-year-old now. At the time when she came and we told her what we were going to do, she was like, well, what about me? And
Mhm.
she's living on her own and like I said, married and have her family. And so when we explained, well, we can get the farm, we can start our own business, we're planning to do this. And at the time, with even when the house market in Toronto, um, about 2 days later, she called us and she says, I'm coming too.
yeah.
And with her being
She
a
got a
nurse,
job. She got a job
she
here
got
before we
yeah,
even moved.
before we even
Before we
moved,
even
she got
closed
a
the place, she
yeah,
got a job.
she had a job at the hospital here. So we all packed up and came. And like I said, I mean, there was, bittersweet to the move because of course, there were disappointment with the house because we thought we'd, tried to do everything with getting the house inspected. Mind you, we never bought the property for the house. We really bought it for the property because it was beautiful property and we knew that it had potential. And the fact that it had the 2 barns on it, we knew that we were going to go into farming. So even with that, we said, you know what, we're not even going to let that, you know, make us, feel anyway. We're still going to do what we're doing. We're happy we did this. And many times when I talk to my friends and family in Ontario, they're like, have you regretted the move yet? And I said, no, we still have, there's no regrets. I mean, we're living out our dream. I mean, this is something from about 13 years ago we've been talking about, but just never saw the way to it.
And
You
one
know?
of the drive to this farming is really because I've never seen a black farmer.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
one of my things. I've always said it. Why can't I see black farmers? In the States, there is.
In the US.
But
Yeah.
yes, but here, and I know maybe there is, but it's not highlighted. That's not a big community. So
It's not. I used to listen to a podcast called 1609, and one of the episodes was about black farming in the States. Now my stats are going to be way off, but I don't know if it was 100, 150 years ago. About 14% of the farmers in America were black,
Yes.
especially after slavery.
yeah.
They knew how to farm. They all
That's
knew how to
it.
farm, but pushback and racism and hatred and stealing of land acquisition. I think now it's something like less than 0.1% of farmers in America are now black. So it's something that, yeah,
They,
you
they,
knew how to do, and you just
they,
don't see it anymore.
they squeeze you out once you decide to do it to a certain level. You'll get that sabotage, and I
Yeah.
notice it because even now that we got our stuff going, in the beginning, some people were kind of giving you that gung ho, like they're happy for you, but now that they see that you're really doing it, you could see the drawbacks that's coming.
Yeah,
and,
they
and
believe us now that we're doing this because
so
everyone that used to speak with us when we first came here, well, you could do a hobby farm. Nothing wrong with hobby farming, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted to do this. Like, I would love to see our meats in the grocery store in a few years from now. So that's
Absolutely.
my goal,
Yeah.
right? So we're doing a farm, and that's what we want to do. And so now that it's being recognized that we're serious about what we're doing, we're now seeing some of the pushback. Like, we're seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
People were like, "Oh, that's cute. They want to have a little
yeah.
garden, a little."
Yeah, I'm
And
gonna be
farm
honest.
equipment is expensive,
Oh,
eh?
yes, it
Yes.
is. It
Ooh.
really is.
And as I said, well, we're not um, fifth or fourth or fifth.
Yep,
Generation.
that's what I was. Yeah, that's what I
Where
was
things
alluding
are
to.
passed
Yes.
down, right? Because one of the reason why, and that's why we named ourselves Ferron's Family Farms. Because when I came here and I started meeting people and seeing the farms around, you go down the street, you see the name of the family. The majority of farms here, you'll get one or so that Sweet Valley or whatever, as an example. But the majority of farms here carry the family's last name
Hmm.
because it's a generational farm. So I said, well, when in Rome, I'm
So you're starting a legacy, I hope.
starting a legacy. So
Yes,
I
yes.
said, well, we're gonna name it our farm, our last name, because this is our farm, family farm. And so we did the same thing, which I'm so proud of. But with that said, now we're seeing that being in this community, we see little things, just small things that, if I say to someone that's lived here who, think that, everything is, simpatico, you have no problem. It's all in your head. They won't realize it, but we do. We see it. Like our eggs are cheaper than anybody's around here, but they're only bought from people from Woodstock and further, right?
Sure.
Not,
In the community, there's
in
no support. I'm
no
selling, like,
support.
yeah, as she's saying, our eggs are $3.25, and there's nobody around that's close who comes and support. Not even just for the simple fact of getting a cheap egg. So this
Why are
is
your eggs so much cheaper, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, that's we thought to break into the market,
yeah.
right?
Maybe charge the same amount as everyone else.
Yeah,
It
Do you think
doesn't
that would?
it's not gonna
still
make a
not gonna
difference,
happen.
and
But I'm saying, if you have something which is there, brown eggs just the same as anybody else, and you're
Mm,
selling it at 325, it's a bit less. Maybe say 75 cents less.
yeah,
Somebody
some farms are even selling it for $6.
if I'm around a community right now, I used to go buy eggs from the Amish, and if I go to a set of family there that sells their eggs for $3, and the other one sell it for $2.50, I'm gonna go where the 250 is because I want to get something cheaper. You know what I mean? And I know
sure.
it's the same product.
Well, even in
So
this market right now, and even in this environment of, grocery prices are just going way up, and people want to save more, and they're spending more, getting less at the grocery store. And there are people who come, and I have people who are ordering my eggs, like,
yeah,
4 dozens every so week, 5 dozens. But these are people outside this community,
So,
it's outside, and some of the, so it just surprised me that I even try to be more community, involved with things
go to
to get
local
our food out
events, meet the
there. Yeah,
people. Go
yeah,
to.
and I mean, even you'd think with us trying to be involved and getting to know people, I mean, not every farmer is going to have beef all the time, because you do sell out, right? We sell out of pork sometimes, but no one is ever within the county to come and buy from us.
It's amazing that you have a support system that's growing. You're barely a year and a half in, and you're having amazing successes. Now, one of the things I realized when I first started, I've been visiting the Maritimes my whole life. My parents moved here 23 years ago. I moved here 13 years ago. And the thing everyone always says about the Maritimes is that, oh, Maritimers are so friendly. Now, Hillary, you're shaking your head, but the thing that people don't realize is that, yeah, Maritimers are friendly, but they're not nice. They're not necessarily nice. And that's reflected perfectly in your story. When you showed up, they all came over, peeking their head around, seeing what you're up to. They're very friendly to you. But when it came down to the nitty gritty of it, they're not nice.
It's a two-faced
Whereas,
friendliness.
and growing up in Toronto, everyone out here thinks that Torontonians are complete jerks, and they got it completely backwards. I tell them, Torontonians, we're not jerks, we're busy. If you could stop a Torontonian long enough to get our attention, we're the nicest people in the world. And in my opinion, Torontonians are much nicer than Maritimers.
I've heard
but Maritimers are friendly.
Sorry, I've heard.
No, go ahead.
I heard the statement. Those stupid Toronto, stupid.
Yeah,
Ontarians.
they call us the stupid Ontarians.
You know, so what you're saying is exactly true.
Yeah,
that's just what it is. They look at us different. But the thing is, if in Toronto a white person don't like you, you're gonna know that they don't like you because they're letting you know.
Yeah.
Here you're gonna get a smile, and they'll come and give you a smile, and and behind your back, they're stabbing you. That's just what it
but
is.
not even that. What I find is, even being here, you go out, that you just get the stares. Like, why are you here? I mean, the first time Al and I, we were looking, when we decided, we got to get some animals. We didn't know where to go get the animals, and we heard about auctions. And we went to an auction. And I tell you, I remember it so vivid. We went to the auction. Remember the first auction we went to? We've never been back to one. I don't know if that scared us. I don't know. But we went to the auction and we walked into the room. And I tell you, you could hear a pin dropped. And when we walked into the room, they couldn't even hide it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here? Where did you get lost along the way and end up in this building? And I tell you, we went in there and we sat down on the bench. Al went over and talked to find out what they had, that
their
they're
protocol,
what to do and what they were going to sell. And we sat down on the bench, and everyone that came in looked at us and then looked at the rest of the room. And you could see that look to the rest of the room. Who are they and what are they doing here? And you literally would see people. You could see that we were sitting. Yeah, and you could, and nobody would sit beside us. And then when they would come in and go talk to the other farmer, you'd hear them whispering, and then you'd see them look over at us. And then they would whisper and they'd look over at us. And I thought, oh my God, Al, I can feel it. I hear it. I don't know what they're saying, but I feel it. And one lady she didn't even come to sit right next to me, but she was sitting enough to be looking at me with her mouth open. Like her, like, and it was like, okay, are you going to make it more obvious? And you know what we did? We end up leaving. We left because it was like, what are we going to get here? Like, nothing, we're not going to get anything here. So we left, and we've never been back. And I don't want people to think that I'm saying that